Last time on Building Resilience, we were installing Marvin's Sky Cove on the outside of the house. It wasn't challenging enough to install an 800-pound prototype on a house with a skinny lot and very limited crane access. We decided to do it at the beginning of a pandemic to make sure it would be as difficult as possible. Actually, the installation went smoothly. A skid steer loader took the place of the crane. After knocking out the shims and bolting the Sky Cove home, at the end of the day there was a cubicle glass window seat securely attached and flashed weather tight. Next, Michael and the crew turned to the Marvin modern casement windows with triple glazing and fiberglass frame and sash. Next was Marvin's modern style stacking sliding doors that open the living space to the outdoors. Before they can do that though, they have to unload the truck. As the truck was unloaded and windows spread around the house, Stephen began removing the existing windows and Ben began installing the new ones. Actually, installation started the next day, but in video we can do a lot of fun things. The windows are sealed to the surface of the Zip System R12 panels using Zip's 3-inch flashing tape, but first the openings are flashed with more Zip System tape, like the stretchy tape they use for sill pans to stop air and water leaks. Between flashing is window installation.
Those little things that we thought were packing clips of some sort are actually like little shimming stands to give a second flat spot to screw it through. By the way, we just want to comment on Ben's ability to manipulate a frame while standing on a ladder using two hands and not holding on to the side of the building. I mean, that takes true skill. Look at this guy.
And a crushed thumb. He's actually floating.
He's like a French acrobat.
As usual, the first step is leveling the bottom, typically done with shims and little pry bars. When the bottom's level, the carpenters usually nail the bottom corners and measure diagonals to make sure the frame is square. Then they nail the top corners of the nailing flange. But this isn't a nailing flange, it's a taping flange, and the window fastening is done by screwing through the fiberglass frame into the studs. Into the window bucks in this case. The guys nail the flange into the sheathing just to keep it flat for a better taping job. The frames are screwed about every 4 to 6 inches, which seems like a lot of screws and a pain in the neck, but actually it's a superior way to get a perfect installation.
It goes fast. I mean, we all have impact drivers. It's not that long. I would rather that we are screwing this thing and getting it perfect in the opening than relying on nailing it from the outside to be the thing that's making it perfect.
I guess you're nailing it every 4 inches on the outside.
It's just not every 4 inches, but we're not nailing it for the accuracy, and the screw gives you more accuracy.
Okay.
And if anything, it really pushes you to true up the window in installation.
And that's gonna improve the performance of the window.
Right. And if you overdrive just a little bit, right, you back the screw out and the window comes back. So a nail is a very permanent thing.
Yeah.
And not always the greatest when you're working at squaring and truing up something like a window. Yeah.
All right.
With the frame set, square, and perfectly straight, the sash snaps into place, with a little musical interlude. After the hardware snaps into place, the window operates perfectly. But what about those massive sliding stacking doors that completely open the living space to the outside world?
So we've never installed either one of these, really, the slider or the bifold, ever before. So it was very much a learning curve. I'm going to take the mask off, I think.
Okay.
Oh. There. Now you have to sync up my voice when I goof. So the slider is a 4-panel slider, and each of those panels comes in around 130 pounds a piece. And then the track that it sits in is all unassembled when it arrives. So we get these super long crates that are super cool. We turn them into work tables afterwards, all designed to protect the components. And
You lay them all out on the ground and you start to go through this instruction manual and you think, wow, this is this is going to take a few hours. And it does, but honestly, at the end of the day, the frame that you're working with is so lightweight that it makes it really easy for two people to handle it, set it into position, make little adjustments, start to tack it into place. One of the biggest learning curve bits for I think for us on this one was, on a 14-foot opening, we have a total 1/4 inch deflection allowed in the assembly. So it's very stiff. And in the unit itself, as you're building this track, it's got to be pretty much dead spot on perfect. There's just not a lot of room, for error. So as you're installing these 4 screws, 1, 2, 3, 4 across each of the tracks, if you overdrive or underdrive any one of those, it actually deforms the track a little bit and will cause the doors to bind in the track. So getting that right is really critical. And we learned that the hard way because, of course, we thought we had it pretty good, started to set the doors in place and move them and found that in fact we had to go back and make some minor adjustments. But to that end, the adjustments are super easy to make. So it's not like it's installed and, oh man, you screwed up and you're done. So I would say overall, and I think it took us 4 hours to install the big slider. And I'd say that's about where I think it should be. The instructions were good. One of the cool things that Marvin has done with their instructions process is they've added in QR codes. So as you're going along and you're like, I'm trying to figure out this, how is that screw going in and what location? You just scan the QR code, a little video pops up, and it's showing you in context what you're about to do. So that was pretty cool. Something else that Marvin's doing that is fairly unique and probably worth mentioning is they have separated the installation parts, like the screws, the handles, all of that stuff, the manuals, from the units themselves. So when you get your order, of 40 windows and doors and all kinds of stuff, right? That stuff all comes as individual pieces. And then we got these like 3 giant black and yellow boxes. And inside each one of those were all of the hardware bits that we were going to need. Touch-up paint, silicone, extra instructions. So it makes for really awesome job site management. It's a little thing, but on this side of things and the assembly, it's a huge thing.
Yeah, that's cool. So what about the window behind you? Is that, it looks like you're inside the house, so that's an interior window?
It is an interior window. Here's that big slider.
Yeah.
This is the sunroom. And I'm a big fan of putting windows on interiors. I think it's kind of a cool way to separate 2 rooms. You still have light. You still have privacy if you need it. And you can open it up, connect the 2 spaces, and visually, it's a really cool detail. And here you have a super cool bifold outswing window.
And it's not, I'm guessing it's not triple glazed with argon fill and, design pressure ratings for Miami-Dade County. Is it an interior window or is it an exterior window that was put inside?
This is an exterior window that we put inside.
So it does have all of that stuff, except maybe not triple glazed.
Not the triple glazing in this instance. And here's the secret. This is actually a door. So this is from the Ultimate series, Marvin's signature Ultimate series, and it's intended to be a door. And we asked if they could custom make us one as a window. So it's really, the engineering here is really designed for something much larger than what you're seeing back here, which makes the functionality of this thing like butter. The hardware is well within all of its tolerances. The challenges with something like this, and I think Marvin anticipated this, have a lot to do with the order of the hardware itself. Each of these pieces has a different function and gets different hardware. And there's an order of assembly and an order of attachment that's pretty important to follow. We actually managed to get one of the parts reversed when we were assembling this. So we got it assembled, kind of, and then had to go backtrack 7 or 8 steps and then put it back together again. Funny that we had just installed the big slider and then went and installed the bifold, and the two processes are completely different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You were feeling all confident from the slider that you didn't bother reading the instructions as much on the bifold.
Not exactly, but yeah.
That's a lot of glass to pack into a single episode, but here we are at the end talking about what's going to happen next. The last step in installing all that glass is to integrate the frame with the WRB and drainage plane. And that's the first step of water management, which is what we'll focus on next time when we install a UV-safe WRB called Invisirap from Benjamin Obdyke.
I think this stuff is just awesome. If you take a look at how gorgeous that is, those connections, virtually invisible. This tape that they're using has got kind of a fabric-y quality to it. It's very soft, not reflective at all, which I think adds to that whole matte black, invisible thing that they're going for over at Obdyke.
And we're going for the whole invisibility thing too, because we want it to be invisible behind the open cladding sections from AZEK. After that, we'll install 2 types of rain screen: Batten UV over the Invisirap
UV.
and Slicker Max over the rest of the house. AZEK's Paint Pro panels will cover the Slicker Max, and then we'll install that awesome deck. So until we crash into the next episode, stay tuned and stay resilient.